Hello guys, this is Nilu, and today I have organized a presentation and a webinar to answer any questions you guys have about NBDE Part 1. So in this very quick presentation, I have prepared materials to talk about the subjects you guys are going to be tested on the NBDE Part 1. Then I will tell you a little bit about how you guys' scores are being calculated for the exam, and lastly to give you a few tips about how to study for the exam. Then at the end, you're going to move to our panelists to answer the questions you guys wrote on the Google Doc. So, subject areas for the exam are anatomic sciences, biochemistry, physiology, microbiology, pathology, and dental anatomy and occlusion. You guys need to complete 400 questions in 7 hours, and your performance is scored as a pass or fail, with a score of 75% being the minimum passing score. The following table provides the NBDE Part 1 administration schedule. The total administration time is 8 hours and 30 minutes, including tutorials, scheduled break, and a survey. Here is a list of examination items. For biochemistry and physiology, you will be tested on biological compounds, metabolism, molecular and cellular biology, connective tissues, membranes, nervous system, muscle, circulation, respiration, renal, oral physiology, digestion, endocrine, professional ethics, and patient management. For dental anatomy and occlusion, you'll be tested on tooth morphology, pulp cavity morphology, calcification and eruption, principles of occlusion and function, clinical considerations, professional ethics, and patient management. For microbiology pathology, you'll be tested on general microbiology, reactions of tissue to injury, immunology and immunopathology, microbiology, immunology and pathology, systemic pathology, growth disturbances, professional ethics, and patient management. And lastly, you'll be tested on anatomic sciences. And the subjects are gross anatomy, histology, oral histology, developmental biology, professional ethics, and patient management. Scoring of examination. Skill scores range from 49 to 99, with a score of 75 representing the minimum passing score. The minimum passing score is determined by experts through standard setting activities. Examination passing standards are reviewed and updated by subject matter experts. When standards are updated, a corresponding modification is made to the score scale, so that the score of 75 continues to reflect the minimum passing score. A candidate's total score is computed using the total number of correct answers selected by the candidate. The total score is then converted to a scale score, which adjusts for any minor differences in difficulty across NBDE Part 1 forms. Results reporting. You will receive a passing result if you pass your exam. You won't be able to see your numerical scores if you pass. You will only receive numerical scores for each of the major disciplines covered on the examination if you fail the boards. Apply for the examination. First, you need to obtain or retrieve your DentPin at ada.org/DentPin. Your DentPin number will be the same number that you use for your DAT exam. A new application and fee must be submitted each time you wish to take an examination. After you meet the eligibility requirements for testing, your application will be processed. After your application has been processed, you will be eligible to test for a 6-month period. So for those of you who took the mock exam, I just wanted to tell you not to be intimidated by the mock exam. Mock exam is to just give you an idea about the test and prepare you better for your exam. The mock exam helps you understand your areas of strength and weaknesses, so you'll plan your studies accordingly for the real exam. And just a few tips for studying for NBDE Part 1. Start with the easy subjects and get those out of the way. Set a deadline. Don't acquire too many resources because you just confuse yourself. Try to get the most updated study materials. Ask us for tips and recommendation. And try to take practice exams. So this concludes our presentation. Before moving to our panelists, I just wanted to let you know if you have any questions, any logistic or administrative question about NBDE Part 1, I strongly recommend you to refer to the National Board Dental Examination Part 1 for 2019 guide, and you should be able to get your questions. Now we are going to move to our panelists. Alright, hi guys.
Hello.
How are you doing?
Jay is here.
Okay, So
Did you
we're-
move it?
Alright, so we are going to start with the first question. So I'll ask the question, you guys can like raise your hand if you have an answer, or I don't know. So what resources did you use to study for the boards?
Mastery app, for sure.
Mastery app.
Yeah,
It's a good
Mastery
one.
app was really helpful. I think a few of my questions on the boards were also like pulled straight from Mastery app, so I feel like it was really helpful. Also, first aid is good for some sections. I didn't like it for anatomy as much, but I think it was really good for path.
Yeah, Mastery app's great because every question you do, there's always a description at the bottom, pretty much explaining the concept of the question,
Yeah.
why other answers are wrong, and why the one's right, and it just teaches you a lot. So I
Yeah.
would use that as your main study tool. Use first aid. If you're gonna use Denodex, use either Denodex or Mastery app. They're both the same. Just pick one or the other. Don't waste your time.
So how many times did you guys do the Mastery app?
Once. I
If-
did it once.
Yeah, like once and a half. Like it's kind of like with the Mastery app, you can sort your questions based on like one question you know, one question you somewhat know, one question you don't know. So
I think it's, I think I used that feature too.
Yeah.
It's helpful to kind of, what I did was every time I got a question wrong, I would like mark it as something that I either didn't know or like kind of knew, and then I would go back and then reread the explanation like every other day just to remember like the concepts that I got wrong or that I missed that time. So I think that feature is helpful because it kind of reminds you to go back and double check the questions that you just don't know.
yeah. And other than that,
Anything else on that?
I just use mainly first aid and use the app to just quiz myself.
Oh, I also used
That's it.
300 Dental Anatomy Facts was really helpful.
That's a
The
good
YouTube
one.
videos, yeah, and they have like PDF printouts that you can use. And I think I used the like Sketchy Micro, like just a limited amount for like the microorganisms that I didn't know or that would show up really often. Yeah.
Okay. So the next question would be, how long did you study for it, or how long do you recommend studying?
2 weeks of like good studying, which is like maybe like 7 hours a day. Like 2 weeks is kind of like a good amount that you need. If you feel like, if you feel like maybe like you're not the best studier and like sometimes you need a little bit more time, maybe bump it up to 3 weeks. But
Yeah.
2 or 3 weeks should be fine.
How about for those people who did JGS? How
Oh,
much
yeah.
did you study for it?
It really depends on your researcher, and you gotta talk to them. And for me, I talked to my research faculty, and then he let me like study for two and a half weeks, and then make sure for whatever time they gave you, you make sure you go really hard on it, and then just go take the exam.
So what were some areas you wished you have spent more time on?
Probably path more so. I think those questions kind of come up a little bit more in a repeated fashion, like the concepts are more or less repeated a lot. So I would definitely recommend like going through, I know like people don't really want to go through like Sanchez's lectures over again, but they were really helpful. Like I think if you go back and just kind of like narrow down the concepts that show up a lot, the little syllabuses that he posted were actually really good to kind of read through. And if you like use that with first aid, you should be good for path.
How about for micro?
Micro, I used Sketchy Micro a lot because it was the fast way to remember like hundreds of different microorganisms that we covered in class. So I think if you go through that, you should be fine. I wouldn't go through like the lectures that Dr. Joyce had. I think a lot of that is superfluous and you don't need it. But I think Sketchy Micro is pretty good at like getting the main concepts down.
I'll also recommend the Passing the Dental Board videos because they teach a lot of the mnemonics that are really helpful for the boards.
Oh yeah, mnemonics come up a lot, and if you use the Mastery app, there's like a feature on there with all the different mnemonics on there. I'm sure they have some for Path and for Sketchy and for Micro.
And for the dental anatomy, would you say the videos are enough?
The videos help a ton because you get a ton of questions about occlusion and like also movement of the jaw that you don't learn in school.
Yeah.
And actually, the only time you learn it is through the videos, actually, to be honest. So you should definitely watch the videos. There's full videos somewhere floating around. Probably like just look for it. Someone will probably have it and they can send it to you. Because the ones on YouTube are shortened for obvious purposes. They want you to pay for it. but someone has them probably.
Yeah. I think if you Google like pretty much any video on like excursive movements or protrusive movement, like all the things that you basically have to know that you won't get until you take cross in your second year, I'm sure they have like a YouTube video, and a couple good ones did come up when I was studying for boards. So.
And
Also, primary dentition isn't really covered
Oh,
in
yeah.
our curriculum, and it came up a lot on
Oh,
the
yeah.
boards, so
Yeah.
make
Yeah.
sure you know your primary dentition.
Yeah.
I think half of my questions were just primary.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They have a section in first aids, and then also first aid, and then also I think the 300 dental anatomy facts has like one video where they cover only primary dentition, so that would be helpful to go through.
Yeah.
and like for anatomy, what you guys use mainly?
Anatomy.
I think overall I think the curriculum prepares you well.
Yeah.
I'll say
Particularly really
McMaster's
well on
slides.
the anatomy.
I'll say
and,
what I did was like I just reviewed really fast like the anatomy slides, and like
Mhm.
honestly like you're pretty much set as long as you can recall them. You're fine with
Yeah.
They had the
anatomy.
neck part mostly, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They hit it really well.
Yeah, McMaster's like old questions and his slides are really well organized, and if you go through those, like you should be fine. I didn't like first aid for anatomy as much because it just seems like a lot of lists but like not enough like explanation and no pictures, and I'm like the type of person for anatomy at least I think you need like a visual representation. So I would go through McMaster's slides. He's really good at like getting the main concepts down.
And then we also had biochem, right? So for biochem, I remember there were like a lot of cycles. So did you like guys memorize the
I
cycles?
don't think those came up.
Well,
Honestly, you just
I
need
don't-
to remember the rate determining steps.
Yeah.
Right, those are the most critical
I don't-
ones.
You don't have to like do like the whole undergrad thing. Like to like remember the whole cycle, but remember like key things like like rate determining steps or where it takes place would be a good one to know.
Mm-hmm.
Things like that. Not like you don't have to know like specifically what comes after what or
Mhm.
anything like that.
Yeah, I think I didn't really get like a ton of biochem questions, at least not that I remember. But I think I agree. Like, if you just know like the rate determining steps and like which, I think that should be more than enough, at least for the major cycles that we
Yeah.
have to know.
I think for most of us, because we all that stuff was in fall quarter, right? So we didn't really take it. We took the boards before we actually learned it.
Yeah.
So like we just kind of like just took the questions, and whenever we didn't know it, we just kind of I would say just Google it. If you don't know it, just Google it, and like you'll get a good rundown of it, and just go back to the question later, and see if you can answer it.
Also, the passing the dental boards gives
Yeah.
you really good videos
Yeah.
on
Yeah.
the cycles or the main parts. So,
Honestly, if you're under like a lot of time stress, like definitely go through the passing the dental boards videos.
Mm-hmm.
Passing the dental board. So what were the most repeated subjects on your exams? Do you guys remember?
Dental anatomy.
Dental anatomy for
Anatomy
sure.
for
Like
sure,
pretty
yeah.
much that's your like your gold. Like if you know it pretty well, like you get so many questions like easy. Like occlusion for sure came up a lot. Like what tooth?
TMJ.
TMJs,
A lot
yeah,
of
for
TMJ.
sure.
Yeah.
And also developmental tooth development, right?
A little. I think I didn't
Oh.
get that as much, but I think the way that the videos were, like there are some YouTube videos out there on like tooth development that prepared me pretty well for those questions. But I think like for me it was mostly the like dental anatomy questions that came up for like which 300 dental anatomy facts trained me pretty well to get those questions. But I think where I fell down like a little bit when I was taking boards was definitely path. Like every single path question that came up, I was just kind of like, if I had paid a little bit more attention or like read this a little bit more in first aid and the Sanchez syllabi, I probably would have gotten this question. It's just about like knowing the patterns and the symptoms that like certain conditions present themselves with. And I think if you can like really just kind of organize and make a list of like different symptoms and what they correspond with, that would be really good. Like just start knowing like keywords and yeah.
I think dental anatomy, like it can become really easy if you just know the pattern, like know the picket fence, and that would like carry you through a bunch of questions because that comes up a lot. Like which cuss, what is this a cuss occlude with?
Yeah.
And they'll say a lot like a groove, another cuss, a central groove, a pit. And
I
like
we had to draw it.
yeah,
right?
if you just
Yeah.
learn how to draw it, that's gonna
Help you a
that's
lot.
gonna help you like with so many questions, and like you don't have to worry about that anymore because you have it drawn. So like just
Yeah.
know that.
I think out of all the categories on the boards, like dental anatomy is something that you can like be 100% prepared for it, because the questions are not that difficult, and
Yeah.
my recommendation is that like as the exam, getting in like 2 weeks before the exam, just like at least go through the 300 dental anatomy fact like once per day, and then just for repetition and just know it really well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I made flashcards out of the 300 dental anatomy facts because I think if you can just like sit down for an hour and just kind of go through all of the facts just once a day, like
Yeah,
You'll-
you'll be solid.
you'll be solid. Yeah.
It's easy points.
Also, I don't know, I myself have recommendations. So for micro, for the name of viruses and the bacteria, so I refer to the first aid book, and then the micro section has like a chart. It's like a 7-page chart that talks about all the viruses and bacteria. And I literally memorized those, and any question I got, it was from those charts. I didn't get anything like besides.
Yeah,
those,
there's nothing super specific on micro. I think if you just like get like the main like you need to know whether something's like aerobic or anaerobic or like what is it, beta hemolytic stuff.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah. Like those charts that you like just have to just like try to memorize their like how they present and how they grow or whatever.
Yeah.
But for me, it was a little bit different because my session has like some question asked specific like name of the bacteria. So I think it's better like you know the chart, and then especially know the keywords like what bacteria associate with what keywords and what symptoms, and you know that, and you'll be fine.
Okay. So how when it was getting closer to your exam date, did you guys think you were prepared? Like, how was your feeling?
I think it's kind of similar to like right before you like take the DAT, like you think that you're not ready. Like everybody thinks that. Everyone, like I don't think people who take the DAT or MCAT like ever feel like 100% ready. And I think it's a very similar thing to this. Like I'm sure there are some people out there who are like, yeah, I'm gonna ace this, and like they walk into the exam room and they're really confident. But I'm not one of those people. I never am, even when I'm taking like a test in school. So no matter how long I studied for, or however much I studied for, I don't think I felt 100% ready, but you just have to have faith in like the process. And if you think that you've studied hard enough and you know the curriculum has prepared you well, then just take the test. Don't prolong it just because you think you're not ready. If you're that person who like never feels ready, you're never gonna get there.
Yeah. I definitely do not. I mean, like, you'll never feel 100% ready, like Priyanka said. You just kind of get to a point where it's like, you get to, you're just tired of studying, and like a good amount. You're definitely not like super confident, but when you get to that point, you'll know it, and you're just like, you just gotta take it right now, or else like you're just gonna start forgetting and start burning out and losing steam.
Yeah.
Like definitely like don't get scared and like delay the test, because then you're gonna start forgetting more and more, and like you're gonna end in a vicious cycle that you're never feeling ready. So yeah, you may not feel entirely ready, but you just like know enough and know that, and like you'll know that feeling.
Yeah, you will know that feeling like
Pretty much you just get too tired of studying and you're ready.
Yeah.
And especially like during the exam was like you get really tired, you can't recall anything, but just push through, and then in the end,
Yeah.
I think most of you guys can pass.
I think people have different like techniques too while they're taking the test. Like I know some people when they're taking exams in school, they like to like just go through all the questions and then hit submit and leave the room. And then others like to go back and double check their questions. And so I think if you know what kind of test taker you are, don't change that for the boards. Just go with it. Do what you normally do, and you'll be fine.
I would suggest take the breaks, because the exams
Oh,
are
yeah.
really long. Because I know some people just skip the 15 minutes breaks, but I think you should
Don't burn
definitely
out.
take it.
Yeah.
And, like eat something or drink something so you can.
That's a good point for the breaks. Like let's say so you get a break every 100 questions. Take those breaks, and like if there was a question you didn't know, like look it up. You can go outside and look it up, because chances are that might come back again. Like sometimes there's repeated questions, and sometimes, or not even repeated, a similar question. So like you may be like, oh shit, I don't remember this, but okay. You go back, look it up, you learn it, and then maybe the next 100 it might have the question again. Like it happens.
Yeah.
Yeah, it actually happened to me during my lunch break. I came outside and studied one of the subjects that showed up a couple of times, and I think I got it one more time after the break.
It's weird because I feel like my exam when I was taking it was not organized super well, because I literally had like 2 or 3 questions that were repeats within sections. So I don't know like how that happened or what happened, but like it definitely helps if you like didn't know a question, just try to remember it and then go outside during your breaks and look it up and then walk back in and be like, because if it's a repeat, then
Yeah.
you get a free question.
Yeah. If anything, just use the break just to look stuff up that you might have forgotten, or maybe you may have remembered that you
Yeah.
don't know during the test.
Because you're gonna be nervous and your brain's like probably not gonna be operating at like 100% capacity. So just like do your best to kind of remember stuff that you like got wrong or that you think you got wrong.
Great. So, any final words or?
Oh yeah, for there's people like try and go to like studying like so long, like for you only go to 50 practice question per day, like that's definitely not enough. Like I would say like a week before the exam, like at least for 3 or 4 days you should go through at least 200 questions per day. 50 questions, like if you go to 50 questions, try to learn every single question, but it's just too slow, and then like you gotta build up your stamina and then kind of get your mind also ready and body also ready to go through that long test.
Yeah, take those old as the test,
Yeah.
because it kind of helps like prepare you for kind of the format of the questions and
Mhm.
also your endurance
Mhm.
for the test.
Yeah. I kind of going off of that, I saw one of the questions on there that was like, can I just only use the Dental Board's Mastery app
No.
to like get through the test? And here's my thing, like, I think if you're the type of person that you've been getting like A's in BMS every year and like you've been doing really well in your classes and you like have research and you have all these other commitments and you can only commit to like a few hours a day, then like fine, just use the app if that's what you think it'll get you to the test and you'll pass. But I also think like that, and I was talking about this earlier with Sean, but I also think like UCSF is implementing these mock boards for a reason, right? And that's that the amount of people that have been failing or doing badly on boards every year has been going up. And if you're just gonna try to use the board's mastery app to kind of take the shortcut, like I don't think that's gonna help you anywhere in your profession or in your career, especially in the future. You guys are gonna be dentists, you're gonna be doctors, like you need to know this information. And I don't wanna sound like a goody two shoes, but I also don't want you guys to like think that just taking the shortcut is gonna be enough to kind of get you through this test. I think do the most that you can and do the best that you can, and like just hope that you've like done enough to get through the test.
All right. Well, thank you so much, guys.